You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red for the latest of our summer specials ahead of the start of the Premier League season, where we catch up with Reds fans and former players and see what they're up to today. It's like to be joined by one of the most popular Forest midfielders of recent years, Lewis McGugan. Lewis, how are you?
No, fine, thank you.
I suppose we should start from the beginning with you and your career. How did you end up at Forest? Because you were born in Long Eaton, I think. Was there ever a chance you ended up in Derby, or was it always Forest for you?
Yeah, it was always at that time. I had kind of one season in the YEL, the local Nottingham League, and with Pegasus. And then kind of after that first year, it was a case of trying to, well, at the end of the season, funny enough, we either won the league or we just got picked at the end. Then the other two teams was Bulwell and Carlton Town. And at the end of that season, there's kind of like 5 players from Carlton Town and kind of 3 from Bulwell went and signed for Forest, but no one from Pegasus. So it was a bit of a strange thing. So eventually I ended up getting there and getting a trial, and that was it. It was didn't look back really.
Are you a Forest fan as a kid?
I wouldn't say I was a out and out Forest fan. Obviously local. It was more kind of probably Forest and Derby, definitely. But at that time, it was Nottingham Forest Academy was really renowned as one of the best in the country at that time. If you look at Derby, they'd not really started. They didn't really have that history and that name of the academy that Nottingham Forest had at that time. So I think in the area that it was always kind of, if you was a youngster, it was kind of always Nottingham Forest over Derby, really.
Who was running the academy when you were coming through then? Was it Nick Marshall or was it someone else?
When I first joined, it was Paul Hart. So Paul Hart was the academy director, and then as the years went, then Nick Marshall took. But majority of my time, it was Nick Marshall. Yes.
We know Nick quite well. He's come on here a few times. A lovely guy. How did you find it in the Forest Academy?
Yeah. It was like it was one of them things. It was my life, really. Like I said, I joined at 8, and pretty much that was it all the way through. So it was one of them things. I didn't really know anything else, and there was loads of ups and there was a few downs along the way. But that's part and parcel of any career. So no, it shaped me as a person. It shaped me as a player. So no, fun times, definitely.
You made your debut just shy of your 18th birthday. Was that sprung upon you? Did you feel ready for it or not?
No, I thought I felt ready as you can be. You never quite are ready and don't know really what to expect in playing first team football. But I've been in around the first team training and stuff like that. So you kind of get, after a while, you get comfortable. You start understanding, you start looking at the senior players and what they're doing and how they are. And when you kind of get that feeling, it's like, okay, I'm training now and I feel like I can contribute and handle myself. That's the step. And then obviously the next step then is to try and do that in a match.
Who was manager when you first mixing with the first team? Is it Colin Calderwood or is it Megson?
Yeah, so it was a very, very, very strange time, really. It was kind of that when I just got to the end of when I was playing youth team football, the club was kind of going through a bit of that. It was League One, but they was kind of struggling a bit. And towards the time, I think it was Ian McParland and Frank Barlow, they took charge for kind of towards the end of the season. And obviously Gary Megson come in, and when Gary Megson come in, it was a completely different place. And I was in the reserves at that time. A lot of kind of older of the youth team. It was kind of reserves. It was actually a reserve team. It was like kind of the mix what the first team players that wasn't in Gary Megson's plans, and then kind of the youth team players were probably the older youth team players, and then the kind of youth team players were probably outgrown youth team football. So that pre-season was a very eventful pre-season, and one that stays in the memory, that's for sure, because it was, like I said, you was mixing daily with first team players.
Yeah, I imagine that sort of exile squad was probably better than the first team in a few cases.
Yeah,
What
you
was
had
it like? I mean, what was it like under Megson then? Was it? I think who's been on? Nathan Tice has been on. He made it sounded like a tough environment. Was it a tough environment coming through or not?
Yeah, it was that thing of, it was really from my point of view and from the kind of youngster point of view, it was that we was in a change room with a lot of the first team players that had been kind of told to leave or told that it wasn't in the plan. So you kind of sit there, and as a youngster, you don't really say much, but you take as much in. And obviously, you had the likes of Marlon King, Gareth Taylor, Neil Harris, Kevin James, Adam Nowland. There was a real, and then you kind of like you don't understand their position. Obviously, later on in your career, you understand where they are and what they were doing. So it was a bit tough because you kind of had to concentrate on your own thing of trying to forge a career, but you also had first team players in and around that obviously was going through a tough time at the football club. So it was really hard to try and bring them together. And we had Ian McParland as kind of the reserve team manager at the time, and it was really tough for him at times because obviously he had the stress of the first team players that was trying to sometimes leave the club or been told that there wasn't in the plans. But he was also trying to create a good example for the likes of the youth team players kind of coming through. So it was a tough pre-season for everyone, really.
Well, how was it when Colin Woods came in then? Because you kind of broke through under him as a first team regular. Was he a breath of fresh air for the whole club?
Yeah, I think at the time it was that Gary Megson, like we didn't really, on a personal, I just didn't really have a lot to do with Gary Megson, even being in the reserves. It was, you never had that kind of feeling that you was ever going to make that transition. That was never going to be the case. And so you didn't really have anything to do with the first team at that point. Then Colin came in, and initially a few of the youth team players went away with the first team. I didn't go, but I was still quite young in a sense of, even though I played youth team football, I started playing I played for at the time when I first come in, it was still under 17s and under 19s. And I was playing under 17s at 13, 14. So by the time then I went to captain and then it changed to under 18s, and I captained the under 18s at 15. So it was, even though I felt like I've been in the youth team for a long time, still my age wise, I wasn't really that old. So when Colin comes in and looks at the kind of sheet, the lads who are kind of pushing 18, 19, they was kind of first there that's their next step. So I wasn't really involved at first in the pre-season tours and stuff like that. And then eventually you just get a little snip where you can go and train with the first team for a day and make up the numbers. Then that becomes 2 days, and that becomes quite frequent. And then before you know it, you're training with them on a regular basis. So yeah, that was kind of how it happened. And then you're just training on a regular basis, still playing youth team football and reserves, and you're just waiting for an opportunity.
What's it like being, like you say, you were playing under 18s at 15 or whatever, you're still at school at that point. What's it like trying to keep your feet on the ground? Because you've probably got mates in your ear saying, oh, you're going to be a big player here. What's it like mentally? I'm trying not to get carried away.
Well, I actually left school. They took me out of school. So I left school. So I did my kind of year 10, I was only doing kind of 2-3 days a week at school. So I do half. So I kind of I go to school for Monday and Tuesday, and then I go to the digs kind of Tuesday night, and I'd like go all the way through to the weekend and still do education there. And then literally my last year 11, I come out completely, and I just went kind of full time. So I was in that environment already. So it wasn't as if I had I was doing that, but also going to school. I was kind of out that environment. So my kind of friends back home, it just become a kind of different life really, because I was away. I was kind of in this bubble, and they was kind of still getting on with that thing. So they didn't really kind of mix. So really it was kind of easier because I didn't really have them distractions, if that makes sense.
Would you still, if you could wind the clock back now, would you want to have done more schooling, or do you think it was the best approach for you with hindsight?
I think I was ready in terms of footballing. I needed to have that full-time training every day with the youth team. Even I was at a young age, but I think I needed that. And that was their club's thinking. I needed that kind of different training. The 3 times a week wasn't enough. It wasn't getting me to that next. I was ready for that level. And you sometimes think to yourself that you have that point where, I miss certain stuff of a normal kind of young teenager growing up, and you look back and little things like the school prom and stuff like that, all kind of stuff like that. That just never happened for me. I was never around for stuff like that. So stuff like that you miss. But listen, I've got to be very thankful of the kind of the career that I've had and the start I've had. So it could have gone many different ways. So hindsight's a wonderful thing, but yeah, I'm happy with how it went.
Your first full season as a regular is in League One. I think it's the season you lose to Yeovil in the playoffs. Was it beneficial to you personally coming through in League One, do you think, rather than the Championship? Was it helpful to play at that slightly lower level as a young player?
Well, it's funny enough because I think I came, like I said, I was in and around the first team a lot, but I never really got a couple times on the bench. But mostly if I played or on the bench, it was in the JPT trophy and stuff like that. So it wasn't. And then I kind of got into the league squad, which was then that next challenge. And I can still remember it now. And that's why I always say to a lot of people that a lot of football, your career is, a lot of it's down to luck. A lot of people don't realise that a luck has so much involvement in how a career kind of pans out. And I was on the bench and unlucky it was Sammy Klingen. Sammy Klingen, I think he broke his ankle in like the first half of like game at home. And so I was on the bench kind of like just happy to be there. And before I know it, I'm in the first team, I'm on the pitch. And that kind of, I didn't really think of it beforehand. I was just kind of chucked in there. And then a lot of people say you either sink or swim. And I didn't sink. And then I ended up playing kind of from January all the way to the end of the season, pretty much every game. So before I had a chance to know about it, I was coming back into pre-season the following year, already having kind of like 20 plus games under my belt. So I'm now looked at and also looking at is a different thing where probably if that hadn't have happened, I'm probably still coming back the following pre-season, might have played a few games, but also trying to still make my mark. So yeah, it's different paths and different avenues way into the team, and kind of that was mine.
Yeah, I remember back that time there was players like James Biggins, James Beaumont, Ross Gardner. I mean, were they just, I think you were around that same age. Were there players like that who didn't make it and didn't have the career that you thought might have done?
Yeah, they was a lot older than me, like Beau and Ross Gardner, because that was like, I can still remember I was in the youth team and I was like kind of pushing, and then there was a big thing when Ross and Beau signed, because it was like 2 players from Newcastle. It was like, and I was thinking, well, I'm a centre midfielder. Like, well, we've just brought in 2 centre midfielders from Newcastle, from a big club like Newcastle. So you kind of look and think, right, where's my path? And they was a lot older than me, and they was around. So you just had to bide your time. And I ended up playing in the reserves a lot with Beau. To be fair, a lot of the times, and he was fantastic. He was such a nice human being and nice role model to be around all the young lads when they come into reserves, because he was still playing reserves, but he was quite old at the time. But the way he kind of brought young lads into the squad and the way he was with them, it was first class, and stuff like that always stay with you.
We should talk about a couple of specific games in League One. I guess they're both Yeovil, really. Did you play in the playoff games against Yeovil that you lost? What was that like? I mean, David Prutton's on this show all the time. I can't, I have to mention him getting sent off every single week, but it must have been an awful experience for you.
To be fair, it was one of them where because like I said, I just got kind of chucked into it. I wasn't expecting to be that involved in such a big, because that's what a lot of people say, yeah, Forest in League One, but it was actually harder because if we was kind of 0-0 at half time at home, we was probably getting booed off most weeks. And that was just the pressure that he was under. He was playing in front of that many people. Every kind of team in League One, when they came to the City Ground, it was a cup final. It was a big occasion. So I think it also was brilliant ground in the way of learning, because I had to deal with pressure straight away. I had no choice, because that's what playing for Nottingham Forest is. And some people, as you've seen over years before me and after me, it's not easy. Some people just can't do it. And so being involved in that kind of playoff run and going to Yeovil, I can remember you coming back from Yeovil and you're thinking, pretty much job's nearly done. You know what I mean? You couldn't have asked for a better first leg and how things went about it. And then I can remember, obviously, they started well. Davo scored, and like I said, they started well. And then we just scored just after half time, and it kind of just put that little bit of it was my corner, actually, and Dobes scored a header. And that kind of just put a little breathing space in. And you kind of think, I pretty much came off about 10 minutes after that. And even you're kind of thinking there, even on the bench, like, yeah, you can't see it changing now. And pretty much you're thinking you're going to Wembley. So, and then it just all unravelled. And at that time, because I was so young and kind of naive to the situation, I didn't really, even after the game, you don't quite understand the context of what's just happened. And I think that was a good thing. It was actually a good thing for me. The old senior boys obviously understand, and when you get, like, they probably think might have been their last chance and to get promoted and stuff like that. But as me, kind of naive to the situation and still fresh, it was like, well, yeah, that's not good, and we didn't want it to happen. But right, just kind of wait for next season. And that's kind of that attitude I had at that time, because I was so new to it.
And then a year later, obviously, you play Yeovil again, and the deck was stacked against you more. You needed everything to go for you, and it did. And you score in that game. Julian Bennett probably gets a red card in some games these days with that tackle and scores, or at least a yellow. I mean, that must have been a brilliant day. It was the polar opposite of a year before, I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, that the following year, I'm now, like I said, I've come back. I feel like I'm an integral part. I feel like I'm a real kind of main person in the squad. So you look at it completely different. You're more involved. You're wiser. You understand it more, the severity of things. And it was actually, funny enough, I actually scored the week before against Hartlepool away, which kind of kept it into the last game. And that was, the Yeovil goal was brilliant and a fantastic day, but that Hartlepool goal, that was the biggest one for me, and that, because that's what kept it alive. That's what kept us to take it to the last day. And like you said, everything kind of went our way, and sometimes you need that bit of luck. But for an occasion, being quite so young and getting promotion, and I think it was like that needed at the time. It was a pressure that we was under. We needed to go up, really. But yeah, the day itself was just, yeah, it was fantastic, really.
You start the championship under Colin Calderwood, and then he's gone. I think it was Boxing Day, something like that. And Billy comes in. What was it like playing under Billy? Because everyone speaks to him, they love him, the players, but he was very meticulous, very organised. He left you out of one place. He said you were unfit. What was it like?
Yeah, it was a strange start, because like I said, we got to the championship and we had a really young squad. Obviously, the likes of me, Perchie, Kelv, Chamber, Wes, and even though it was all good and local and a really good close bond in that change room, was still so young and inexperienced at championship level. So it was going into there. I actually had a really, but I actually tore a muscle in my thigh in pre-season. And it was one of them what I didn't quite know. I didn't quite know what it was. I thought it was a dead leg, and it lingered all the way through pieces. I can remember we had Reading on the first game of the season. I hadn't trained for like 3 weeks. I hadn't touched the ball. It was like, and I literally had to painkillers and everything just to get through to the Reading game. But it was like one of them. You didn't want to miss it. It was the first time back in the Championship. It was on Sky. It was like a big game. So you actually played that game, and then there's always a cup game kind of the following week in the week, and I missed that. And then we played the Swansea the week after, and I couldn't move. I literally couldn't move, and I knew something was wrong. And then after that point, I went for the test that I needed, and I tore the muscle straight off my thigh bone. So I was out for quite a long period. So when the stuff happened with Colin, I wasn't involved. I wasn't playing. So kind of when I come back in, obviously then it was we were playing, and then kind of that was the Billy era that then followed. So yeah, it was in terms of Billy, it was very much the likes of Mark Arthur when he addressed the squad and told us that Billy was coming. We knew it was going to be completely opposite to Colin. Obviously, he was coming off the back of a bit of Championship experience and getting to playoffs, so we knew it was going to be completely different, and it was. It was completely different. It was a different way of working, and so you just had to kind of evolve with it and try and get stuck in as much as possible, really.
Did you get on with him? Because he was critical of you and he left you out at one point questioning your fitness, but then you had great years under him. There's a season where he scored 13 goals. You almost get to the Premier League. Was it a bit chalk and cheese with him?
I think Billy was. It was. I think we always had that relationship that it was very. How can I put it? It was always. I think I had to get used to his way of working, and I should have done that quicker. But then also, like, I think we could have met in the middle a bit more, early stages. I think at that time, and the stuff like when he was very critical of me in the paper and stuff like that, and when you look at it, but at that time, it was like I always say, like, I was 20 years old, like I was 19, I was 20, like I didn't know back then as now sports scientists and this and that, the amount of staff that you have in a football club, that wasn't the case then. You had like things, but it was like I needed probably at that stage, I needed more help. I needed to understand my body a little bit more. I didn't think that helped. I didn't think that saying that didn't help, but like I said, he has to do what he felt he needed to do. But like I said, you learn from it, and over the years you start to understand more, and you started to get an understanding of your body. You grow up, you more input from people in there. That's their profession, that's their specialist, and you have that help, and that's something what just evolves with your career and the experience you have. So, but in terms of me and Billy, like I said, I probably at Forest, I had my best years under him. And it was always a case of really, I was thinking I had to kind of prove him wrong. Maybe that's what fired me up. Maybe that's what was different. Like I had to always prove him wrong. And he was always on at me like the rest of the squad. And that's the way he worked. It was full tilt. It was constant. But the one thing I always say, he created an environment and a change room that probably I've never been in since, that it was kind of us against the world, and we were so close in that group, that environment, that change rooms. And if you looked at what we achieved in them times, it was like really the whole times it was like a given to be in the playoffs. That was just, even in terms of the teams around us, you look at the Newcastle and the money they were spending and West Brom and stuff like that, but we'd go toe to toe with him, and the squad wasn't that much different from the kind of start the League One and the early Championship days, barring a few, obviously the likes of Paul McKenna and just a bit of experience, Dele Adebola and stuff, just a bit of experience in the squad. But the stuff that we achieved, yes, we didn't quite get that last hurdle, but the stuff that we achieved in that thing, that was down to him and his man management and the environment he created.
Was that first season where you lost to Blackpool, did that feel like the one when you were at Forest? I know you had a personal better season, but you beat Newcastle at home that season, I think. You went at West Brom when Raddy scored that brilliant volley, and then you probably should have beaten Blackpool. Does that one still sting even now?
Yeah, I think I think everyone, I think fans feel it as well, but players especially feel it. And I've had this conversation numerous times over the last kind of 6 months, kind of plus obviously with the current season how it ended. Sometimes you have your chance. Things go for you. Things look well in the sense of how you do, and you have a chance of doing stuff. And sometimes if you miss that opportunity, don't really come back around again. And I think that was, especially that year, that was our chance. But we had that point where we was up there with Newcastle and West Brom in the January, and we didn't really strengthen. And whatever that was with Billy and the owners at the time, but we didn't really strengthen. The likes of Newcastle and West Brom went and brought in 4 or 5, and they come the end of it. That was the difference in terms of automatic. And then you play in the playoffs, and you always have that team that come from nowhere, full of confidence, kind of with a free hit. And I think that's what Blackpool was at that time. I think it was playing very expansive football, and I just think that over the 2 legs, I just think that they probably picked us in the end, really.
If you look at the next season, that's the most successful one for you personally. You get 13 goals in 2010, 2011. You score that free kick against Ipswich, which I'm sure every time you meet a Forest fan, they ask you about it. Was that where you felt at the peak of your powers as a player?
Yeah. Like I said, I think you have that understanding of you doing stuff and you're working, and you think to yourself, right, this is a season, stuff's going for me. Everything I kind of hit at majority of the time went in. And on a personal note, that was a really standout season for me, with the goals and the assists and the contribution throughout the whole season, kind of what it did and how I could contribute. And it was probably my best season at Nottingham Forest, definitely.
Tell us about the Ipswich goal. I mean, I bet you don't do an interview where you don't get asked about it, but it's one that's going to be still replayed in 30 or 40 years, that free kick. What went through your mind when you stood over the ball?
Yeah, the story is quite strange, really, because I always say it was me and Chrissy Cohen standing over it, and it was just before half time, and I just thought to myself, shall I play it short? And I just thought, right, let me try and hit it. I always thought, just get on target, see if the keeper parries it. Maybe we might get a kind of tap in or something. But that was it. Just get it on target. I can always remember I said, I'm going to hit it to Chrissy. I said, I'm going to hit it. And he always said to me, listen, if this goes in, I'm going home. Like, that's what I can remember. That's what he said to me. If this goes in, and I hit it, and I knew I hit it well, but as soon as it kind of left my foot, and it just had that dip at the last minute. But it's one of them what always stands out, definitely.
Can you still see it in your mind's eye now, the flight of the ball?
Yeah. It's like I said, I think it helps, and it's like you know what I mean, when I'm training the lads at Loughborough and they sometimes bring it up, and it's like the angle from the back. I think that does it real justice, that you can see the actual movement of the ball and what and kind of the action it has on it. So listen, it's one of them goals that will always kind of stay in people's mind, and I'm just very, very thankful to be a part of that, really.
You scored these great goals for Forest. I wonder, was there ever a point where it was not a hindrance to your game, but Sean O'Driscoll was on here and he said he felt you shot too much from distance when you could have played it shorter, and he thought that slowed you down as a player a bit. Is he right there or not, do you think?
I think that's his opinion. That may be his opinion at that time. I think it's very different when you have when you're going off the back of a season like I had, and I scored the goals that I scored. I didn't think any of them was very. I didn't think any of my goals was where there was only one. There was one at Coventry away, and I can remember Paul Konchesky. Conch was playing. I was playing the kind of off the left side. Conch was playing behind me, and he did it overlap. And I come inside and I shot from I think it was like 35, maybe 40, and I shouldn't have shot. Like it was just when you see it, and looking off, the keeper's made a fumble and it's gone in. But I was very fortunate that it went in. Conch said to me, "Listen, if that not had gone in, I'd be coming for you." And that was the only one where I'd think to myself, well, maybe looking at it, I could have passed it. But the rest, there was never really that I thought that I shot from kind of angles that I didn't need to. I always thought when I had a shot, I always generally thought that I could score.
What was it like playing under Sean and Steve Cottrell? Are you going through a few managers now after Billy goes for the first time? What were they like?
Yes, Steve, when Steve came in, Steve was, like I said, really got on with him. Very different character. Nothing like a manager, completely again different to Billy, but he was a very, very different character. Very kind of more wants to be around the team a bit more wants to kind of be in, seeing what's going on in around the change rooms. Quite a very jovial character, but like I said, he come in at a tough time, really. A tough time. A lot was going off in the club in the kind of background, and there was a big transition period, and he kind of got the brunt of that. And he was trying to keep everything at bay on the field, but there was so much stuff going off the field. It kind of spilled into that, and it was just a tough time for everyone, really. What
about Sean came in? He finally got the job after Fawaz had been knocked back by other people. Speaking to Sean, it sounded like a mad time. You had like Kuwaiti players turning up for training suddenly, and players coming in on ridiculous contracts. What was it like being around the club at that time for you as a homegrown talent?
Yeah, it was and that's what I just said. It was just a mad time, and that's where, if I'm perfectly honest, at that point, I thought to myself, do you know what? Maybe my time's coming to an end. Maybe I need a fresh start. And it wasn't because of the football club. It wasn't because of the thing. Because this is all I knew. I love the club. I love playing for Nottingham Forest, but it just seemed to be going a real funny direction. Do you know what I mean? And everything. I think that you had players kind of pre that time, kind of when kind of the new ownership come. Before that time, Nottingham Forest, especially any players who played for it all around, it was always renowned as such a tight-knit football club. Tight-knit people who've been there for such a long time. The people in the background, the people who work in the office, people in the laundry. It was just such a good, close-knit environment. And that was going. It was just losing its. It was just losing its what it was about, and that was that thing. It's like, I don't want to leave Nottingham Forest, but really, right at this point in time, is this really the Nottingham Forest that I knew? And it wasn't.
And then McLeish comes and goes. McLaren, I think McLaren's next. It's so hard to remember the time off the top of your head. Well, I'm sure I remember him coming in and telling Radio Nottingham he was going to build the team around you as like the focal point, playing off the striker.
Before Cottrell.
Okay.
So, and he come in on a pre-season. So, it was loads of people asked me about the Steve McLaren bit, because it's like, it was just a weird kind of spell and nothing. If I'm totally honest, I think Steve was, and I think he's a fantastic coach. You always hear so many people talk about his fantastic ideas, fantastic coach. I think beforehand he'd been in Germany and Holland, and he'd done a lot over there. I don't think he did enough homework coming back to the Championship. I don't think he did enough homework about what it kind of, the players and the players that could strengthen the team. And I don't think he was quite ready in terms of, he'd been abroad, he'd kind of had that. And what he was trying to implement was, you could tell was going to be really successful. But was he going to get the time to do that? And was it the right time? And I just don't think it all kind of knitted together. But if you look then when he went to Derby and what he achieved at Derby and that thing, that's what he was trying to do at Forest. The way they played, that's what he was trying to do. But it was like, did he have the players? Did he have the right players? Did he have the time to do it? Did he have the understanding of the league? And I don't quite think he did. And I think if what happened at Forest for him helped him even more going to Derby, if that made sense. I think it made him evaluate, okay, what I need to do here. And I think that helped him actually then what he kind of produced at Derby. So it was just like a strange time. with that. But mine and his relationship was brilliant. It was really good. He come in and we had good conversations and good ideas. And like I said, it was a bit of a shame that it never quite got to go that way, really. But yeah, it was quite brief.
You left Forest after Billy's return, and it's for the people in the press. It was a different Billy. I don't know who he was like to play for. Were you ever tempted not to go to Watford, or do you think it was the right move at the right time?
Well, it's actually funny enough. When we're talking about Billy and we're talking about him, obviously the stuff in the paper about it. When he came back the second time, in the first couple of days, he actually pulled me in the office and he said to me, "You've lost too much weight." So that's what I'm trying. That is what I mean. He says, "You've lost too much weight. You're not the same player. You haven't got that kind of bulkiness, that power." So it's like, for me, I'm thinking, right, well, you kind of did what you did 2-3 years ago publicly, and now I'm too light. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, and that's what it comes back to the point of that. Then I got older, got more health. Then you find your body, you understand your body more, you understand what you can do, and that's what I mean. So I got to that stage. When he came back the second time, there was still a few of us in the squad that obviously had him the previous time. So it was a very new. When he come back in, I think it was me, Chrissy Cohen. Just thinking.
Chambers, maybe?
No, Chamber were gone.
Yeah.
Chamber were gone. Raddy, possibly. But it wasn't, there was maybe 5 or 6 tops. And then the rest was kind of new, who wasn't aware and didn't know how it worked. So, and we knew, like we said to the lads, listen, you'll love it. You'll love the environment that he'll create and you'll love it. But like you said, I think to us, I think he was just normal Billy, but I think to the outside and stuff, I just think he wasn't. I think he had too many kind of stuff that he thought what happened the first time. And I think that was his mate, that was kind of dragging away from the actual main thing. And I still say that at that time he came back, I think, if he'd have looked at it again, he come back, the club was in a bad way. The fans loved him and adored him. At that time, Fawaz obviously realised that he had this kind of big following in terms of the fans. And I think at that time he come back, he really had everything kind of on a plate, if that made sense. He had an owner that was prepared really to back him. And I just think he couldn't really kind of just come and go, right, let me try and concentrate on the team and go again. I think he was thinking about kind of other things, maybe what have happened previous in the regime since he's left, if any people would have said certain stuff. And I think that just kind of took him away from actual the main job, really. But like I said, he come back, and at that time, my contract was up in that summer. I wanted to stay. He wanted me to stay. But like I said, there was that many things going off in the background. Nobody kind of knew where they stood. And this is it's always, and I say it, and I kept it quiet for a long time. And a lot of Forest fans had that kind of opinion, like, oh, he just left and blah, blah. And I had no choice in the end. I actually left the season with Billy saying, listen, yeah, we can do something, etc. Don't kind of look at anything. I had offers, but it was like, well, listen, if I can stay at Forest, I want to stay at Forest. And again, I'm now older. I'm now more a senior kind of person in the squad. I've worked under Billy before. I'm now a different character. I'm now more mature. Which we had that discussion. He sees me as like a different person in the team now. So obviously it was where I was comfortable, where I was based, and nothing kind of happened. And then we just got knocked out of the playoffs on the last day. I think we played Leicester, lost to Leicester, and we could have. So we thought we was in the playoffs. We were knocked out. At that time, Chamber had obviously gone to Ipswich. So Chamber had already gone on holiday, already planned to go on holiday. So it was that point where our season just ended kind of out of nowhere. So I joined. Me and Chamber ended up going to New York, and actually, I can remember actually coming out one night. I got a phone call from the Forest secretary, and she's saying that Billy wanted to see me and my agent at the time. I said, "Well, I'm in New York for the next couple of days, but when I'm back, we'll go and see." So come back, and we went to the training ground to meet Billy. Had a conversation with Billy, saying all the things like I've said. Listen, I want you to be here. I want you to be a part and stuff like that. We'll make an offer in the next 24, 48 hours, and then we'll see from there. And still to this day, I never heard from Nottingham Forest Football Club again. And that's what no one sees. So at that point, it was that Watford. I had no intentions of leaving. I said, "This, I want to stay." At that point, then now I'm like, wow. I've kind of banked on staying at Forest, turned down a few already. Now I'm thinking, I'm out of contract. Where do I go? Do you know what I mean? And that by that point, it was kind of coming back to pre-season. And you start getting you start to panic. I can remember Chamber and McGugan it was at Ipswich at the time, and they was ringing me. They was already on pre-season. I'm still at home. I'm thinking, do you know what I mean? And that's the thing what really hurts me, because I feel like the way I left the club was nothing to do with me. The way it kind of ended was not the way I wanted it to end. And it was, no one really knew that. They just thought that I'd kind of turned down a deal that I wasn't going to stay because of Billy, and I'd just gone to Watford. And it was like, no, that was like the total opposite. But I had no choice. So it was for how long I've been there, for everything what has happened, it was a sad way for it to end, definitely.
Do you think the club ever did they lowball the local players? You think? I think I've heard Calvin Wilson say he thought that if you weren't a glamorous big name, they gave you a lower offer or no offer at all.
Yeah, 100%. But that's not just Nottingham Forest. That's football. When you come through, the academies, you have the people above. They know you have a kind of affiliation or love for the club. And it's not nice, but they play on that. Do you know what I mean? They play on the fact that you're local, you're comfortable, it's where you're from, and that's it just happens. That's just football. Is it right? No, but it will always happen. It will always happen. And you get people coming in from outside that will get stuff that they probably don't deserve. And I think that's why. And I think if you look at Forest, and you look at the players, especially in my area, that we lost. Well, if you look at, and that's the thing, I went on a free. Wes pretty much went for nothing. Kelv went on a free. Chamber went on a free. There's the proof in the pudding. Do you know what I mean? There it is. You kind of, that's what happens. You don't look after people or try and take advantage of the situation. Sometimes it will come back to bite you.
What was it like playing for Zola at Watford? I mean, not the move you wanted to make necessarily, by the sound of it, but to play for someone with his track record must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very much. It was a tough period for me. Like I said, the Forest situation, I wasn't expecting it, and I kind of said no to others early on in the summer because I'm going to stay here. And then kind of that didn't happen. And it's kind of right now we're kind of like looking and seeing what's now, because we're 2-3 weeks into pre-season. So it's like people have already made their move. So it was a case of, there was this discussion with Ipswich. Obviously, I had Chamber and McGugan, I had good friends there, and Mick McCarthy, who I've always kind of from afar got on with. I think he's a great guy, really straight down the middle. But and it was kind of, there's an opportunity to go to Ipswich, but there's also an opportunity to go to Watford. Now, I took that risk in a sense. I knew Ipswich would be better for me in terms of comfortable, and I know people there. But really, the way Mick plays is for Mick, but it wasn't really for me. It wasn't really my kind of football. He plays kind of just 4-4-2 in a sense of his centre midfielders are pretty much kind of just really sit there. Do you know what I mean? They're not really them kind of. So I had to make that decision. Whereas, yes, it would be the easier decision, but in terms of my career, would it really be the right thing for my football? And it wasn't. And then there was a chance at Watford. I spoke to Gianfranco, and once I spoke to him, and once I speak, the player I was, and growing up, he was like, you know what I mean, incredible. So just having a phone call and a conversation with him, and a chance to play under someone like that, and I think to myself, the way I play, the stuff I kind of did, if I can't learn or take anything from him, then, or if I turn down that opportunity to play for someone like him, then I think you'll always regret it. And it was something Watford never really. It was never really gonna kind of end. It was never really gonna end well in the terms of. But I don't regret it, because I don't regret the chance of playing under him, but more so meeting him, because he's a fantastic human being, one of the nicest people I've ever come across. Do anything for anyone, for all he's done in football. He's so humble. Always trying to look after his players, and he was just, for that kind of 6-7 months he was in charge, it was just a breath of fresh air to just be around someone of that caliber, really.
Is that one of those kind of sliding doors moments of a career? Because you end up going to Sheffield Wednesday, and then you tell me if you didn't get on with Carvajal, or you got injured and things go against you, and your career takes a totally different trajectory. And it might have been different if Zola had, you'd stayed under Zola for a couple of years. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's like the thing is, the thing with Watford, it was like I went with Zola. Zola left, which was 6 months in, 7 months in, and that was kind of the end, really, because I feel like Gianfranco was so pivotal to their structure, because it was a very European-based football club, the way it was run, and that was completely different to me. So it was getting used to that. It was technical director. It was so different to 90% of the way football clubs were running in this country at that time. But Gianfranco had that. He understood a little things from the chairman, from their kind of, okay, there was Italian but he'd been in England so long, he understood the English culture. So he was that kind of bridge between the ownership and the players, and understood, like, yeah, okay, I understand that in Italy, but you can't do that in England. You know what I mean? And once he left, it was just a bit of a disaster, really. It was just a bit of a disaster. The kind of the managers they brought in, and it was just never gonna work. And I'll always be honest, and it's not a nice thing to say, but when I say to people about Watford, I knew it would never kind of really work. I never, at that time, obviously you had the homegrown players, and Watford at the time had a lot of kind of influx from different countries' players, but there was a quota that you had to have homegrown players. And I always say, I feel that I was brought in to fit a criteria more than me as a player. Does that make sense? Like, there wasn't bringing in Lewis McGugan because he does this, he that. There was bringing in Lewis McGugan because he ticks a lot of boxes. And that's why I knew I never settled there. I never felt like settling there, because I knew it was never going to last. And because I always felt like that, I always felt like I was fitting a box. Not, you know what I mean? And that was it, really.
What happened at Wednesday then? Because that could have been a fresh start. Did it just not work out?
Yeah, it was at the time where Watford had kind of gone really. They had an influx of foreign managers, what didn't work. And then, luckily enough, I was kind of on the outskirts, kind of not really playing. And then Billy McKinley took over. And it was like a breath of fresh air for everyone, really, around the training ground, including the staff, because it was like Zola had gone, and it's kind of gone into this like really, really kind of foreign culture. And it was just like completely different, and no one was enjoying it, really. So Billy McKinley kind of coming in, it just kind of, you got that bit of normality, structure behind it. We played a game, I think we played Brighton at home, and it was just that feel-good factor. Right, okay. And he spoke to me, listen, going to get you back in. I know it. And I just thought, right, that was a Saturday, Sunday evening, he'd been sacked. So it was just like, and then it was like, again, another foreign, do you know what I mean? It was just like, and then at that time, I thought to myself, this is just not for me. So VC Jukanovic got the job then. And to be fair, before he came in, I'd already made my mind up. And he said to me, listen, I'm coming in, I'm assessing the squad. And I just said, listen, I just think it's time for me to go. I need to get back enjoying football again. I need to get back playing, and I need to get back. And kind of Sheffield Wednesday come, and it was like, did I want to do it? But it was a chance to go back and live in Nottingham and be at home and get back in the thing. And I went and I spoke to Stuart Gray, and I spoke to other people. I spoke to Chamber had Stuart Gray at Northampton. People spoke highly of him, and I went there. I spoke to him, and he's probably the best manager I've had.
All right.
He's the best manager I've had in terms of, he was at that time, he was everything and more that I needed. I went to Sheffield Wednesday for that loan spell. I probably played the best football that I played in probably 4 or 5 years. I was enjoying. I got that mojo. I was enjoying my football so much, but it was just like, it was just a simpleness of it. It was like, listen, we have a structure. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. But here's a platform to go and enjoy it, to go play, to go and affect a game. What if I did stuff wrong? He didn't. He knew myself, that I held myself in that kind of. I know that he did. He knew that I would know personally that I got it wrong. But if I did things right, he wouldn't then like, whoa, you like. He was just so calm, and it was just such a good time. And I signed. I wanted to stay there. The football club itself at that time was fantastic. The fans were fantastic. And I thought to myself, this is me. Like, the new ownership just come in. And it was like, I could really see myself here. And I kind of banked on signing there. And the deal was kind of agreed. And then Stuart, the deal was kind of agreed. Stuart lost his job. But I'd already kind of pretty much agreed to go. And it was like a 3-year deal. I was just about to have my first child. It was a 3-year deal. I could live at home. I was close by. Everything was just in place. I had a year left at Watford, which I knew that they didn't want me. So it was like, right, well, if I don't do this, I could then go back out there and I could end up anywhere in the country. And it was just, you know what I mean? He left and Carlos took over. And I kind of knew, I just had a feeling that this isn't right. But everything was so far down the line, I couldn't kind of turn back. And I did it. And within the first week, I knew that it probably is not gonna, it's probably not gonna go well.
I saw a tweet the other day that you scored as many goals as Brennan Johnson scored by the age of 20 for Forest. You had this really good career. So Forest fans are probably going to wonder, how did you end up playing your last pro game in your 20s? What do you think happened? Was it just scenario conspired against you? Was it injury, the mistakes you made? What would you tell them as how it ended up as it did?
I think that there's so many elements to it. Is there stuff that I could have done better? 100%. Is there stuff that I could have, decisions that I could have made better? 100%. But there's also so much stuff that I had to go through, and my time at Sheffield Wednesday, that ruined my career. That was it. That was it. That was I never, the stuff that kind of happened there, which is mad that I still can't talk about. In a sense of, which is for me, and it was just, there was such a period that basically that I was in the wilderness, and I was in such a and there's nothing I could do. And that period changed my whole career, because there was a gap. There was a gap in kind of my career where everyone's thinking, well, what's happened? But you can't really, you know what I mean? And that's the hardest thing for me. It's that when you want to play football, when you just want to try and get up, go to training and be involved in the squad and be involved in a thing, and that can't happen. And like I said, I'll be perfectly honest that some of the stuff what happened took its toll on me. I went through such a bad period that I didn't quite realise at the time what it was doing to me mentally. Did it affect that? Because all through my career, all through growing up, all through football, as you'll see so many people talk now, it's a bit different over the last couple of years, but so many people, you show weakness, you show sign of any kind of stuff, there's no place for it in football. So you're always kind of trying to push that stuff and create a kind of shield. And it's sad for me, because it's like that point of you go into a club and you never quite think anything, you never quite think that would happen. You never quite think that certain things could have that effect on your career. And eventually, when I got away from the football club, eventually I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the same player. And there's this stuff that when you then start going to other clubs or trying to get other clubs, there's that gap where everyone asks this question, and it's like, well, and I understand that. Like, I understand in the sense, well, yeah, but you haven't played for over a year, and it's like people don't know, so they automatically just make their own assumptions of what could have been. So you just fight. I was just fighting against the tide, really. Every time I went into a place, it was just like people was like, yeah, okay, but you haven't played for such a long time. I was like, I know I haven't played for such a long time. I can't help that. There's nothing I could have done. All I did is kept my word. I reported every day. I tried to keep as fit as possible. I tried to be kind of as best professional as possible. I can't help that that's happened in my career. I can't help that, but that's happened. I can't change it now. And you get to the point where you're going to these clubs and you're talking, and then they keep just bringing up kind of like that thing of that you haven't played. Well, I can't change that. So it's either, are we going to talk about what's kind of happened in a sense of like what can't be changed, or are we going to try and look at the future and what's going? And I just, like I said, I went to a few clubs after that, but you get into that point where you've been out of the game so long in terms of thinking you're going into it, and you go into these clubs, and this is the big thing. What kind of a lot of people don't realise on the outside of football, when you get to that point, is that there's so many. That's why when people say to me, like, do you miss football? I miss playing football, but the other side of it, that I can't stand it. And this is where you go to these clubs, that much politics going off. You go into a club they have a look at you, but there's that much going off. It's not a case of you just going in and they having a look at you, you have a look at them and like, listen, we like what we see. Back in the day, like it was, let's try and do a deal. There's that many people involved, that many people looking after themselves. There's so much going on, and you just find yourself just basically just a little kind of point in the big grand scheme, in the big thing, and you're just a number. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, I kept on doing it, kept on going to these clubs, and I kept on going in there. After what I've come back off, having to not play for so long, I've not kind of traded, and I was still at a level where I knew that I was affecting their training and things. But when you just think to yourself, like, is it like, I know that nothing's going to happen. I know that they're not going to sign me.
Yeah.
Like, I know, you know what I mean? So you just find yourself like, there's nothing more I can do. I'm going into these places with my kind of back against the wall anyway. I'm going in there, doing well, showing what I can still do. And there's still an excuse. I just find myself also driving back. At the time, like I say, I was a dad. I'm coming back to my son, and and that's what I regret, because I'm in a world away, and I'm thinking about all the stuff that has happened and people have done me wrong and stuff. And it's like, I need to be a dad. I need to be here. I need to be here, not just in body but in mind. You know what I mean? And my last thing was, I then pretty much said, right, I'm going to give it one last go. And I ended up going to Scunthorpe, and Perchie was there at the time. And they had quite a experienced team of a lot of kind of pros who have had good careers, Championship, League One, you know what I mean? Good, honest pros. And it was a good change room. And it was for the first time in so long after I got like, do you know what? I really got that thing. And I think, you know what? I can go again. I'm feeling so good. I'm getting fit. I'm getting stronger. I'm affecting training week in, week out, every day. All the players around me are saying, listen, like, this is a no-brainer. Like, you're flying. And I could feel I was getting back to, but you knew it's never going to, like, you knew the people, like, there was never going to, like, you was never in favour. You know what I mean? It was just never going to happen for whatever reason. And you just find yourself, and eventually I was like, listen, I've been here for a good 3 months now. And that's what I mean. I was going there every day, not getting paid, not getting nothing, going there every day, driving there every day, training, using my own money and stuff like that. And so, not a problem. And it got to the point after that 3 months, like, listen, is something, said to the agent at the time, is something going to happen? And he said, like, listen, like, they just want to, like, kind of make sure that you can, obviously you haven't played for so long, play 90 minutes or you think. I was like, fine. There's a game, they need you to play 90 minutes in the game. And I played the game, scored, did well, played 90 minutes, and I was in the game. And I was like 15 minutes to go, and I thought to myself, I nearly kind of shed a tear in the game playing, because I thought, you know what, you're finally going to get a break. You're finally going to get back to playing and getting back in an environment, and you're finally going to be able to, like, wipe all what them people, like, what's happened. You can now resurrect it and go and then after there was like, you did everything, but we haven't really got any more budget. And you just I drove home and I said to myself, I can't keep doing it to myself. I've got to look after myself now. I've got to look after myself. I've got to look after my headspace. I'm a dad. I need to set, you know what I mean? I can't keep doing this. These people are just playing. And that was pretty much it, really. And people say, obviously you're young, you're early, why did you finish? And it got to that point. That's why I miss football now? So yeah, now and again, like, just be able to play a game of football, enjoying it. But that other side of the game, it just wore me down, and I just don't want to be. I didn't want to be anywhere near it. You know what I mean? And from when I kind of, like, stopped, like, that last point, I had nothing to do with football for like 2-3 years. I did nothing. And it's kind of now, with obviously the things I'm doing now, slowly I've kind of come out of that. And now I'm kind of in that headspace that I'm now prepared to try and give back and give as much information to people, knowledge on the field, but also off the field. I think that's what a lot of people forget, is that all the stuff that people have to deal with off the field. And I think I've been equipped to, and I've gone through so much, that now certain things I can kind of help people and help them kind of go in different directions and deal with things differently, which I wish at that time I had as well. So yeah, it's not nice. Did I ever think it was going to end that way? No, but I think at that point, it just wore me down that much that I just had to get away and do it for myself.
Was it almost a relief to be out of it? I mean, you were very young, but do you think to have that moment of acceptance that it was over, was that actually a good thing in a way for you?
It was a relief of, the phone calls off agents, the phone calls off clubs. Oh, you can go in there, and it's like you got to that point. I'm driving into the club, and I'm thinking to myself, I know that they're not going. Do you know what I mean? I know that there's going to be something that they're going to bring. You know what I mean? Before you even got there, that it's like thinking. And that's what the relief come. The relief come off trying to keep going through that cycle. And the thing is, what I've always said: if I went to a place and I wasn't good enough, not a problem. Not a problem. If I went to a place and they thought that I wasn't the right character, not a problem. But I know for a fact that that's none of the cases. And that was that's why I said I had to come, because all the reasons why I didn't play and wasn't getting clubs or wasn't signing, it was just all the politics, what was just creeping into football year in, year out, year in. And that is what I just couldn't deal with. Just couldn't deal with it anymore. Because all these people looking out for themselves and just trying to look after each other and trying to look after them. At the end of the day, this is what people don't realise, that these players, they're human beings. They've got kids, they've got families. It's their lives, you know what I mean? Why these are just playing like, oh yeah, well, let's just do that. But let's just do that to try and entice someone else to try and make a decision. You just play games with people, and you know what I mean? It's just not right. And that's why you see so many people now kind of realizing what the after effect. And the good thing now is in football that a lot more is being done. A lot more is being done about what these players having to go through, what players having to go through, players having to deal with. And there's more places to kind of to go and help. And yeah, they hopefully it keeps going, and hopefully that they can kind of get a bit more help for these players in terms of, so when they're in these environments, that they're there to play football, they're there to do a job, but also they're there to be kind of looked after properly, as you would do in any working environment anywhere else in, you know what I mean, in any industry. The football industry is an industry like no other, and the stuff that happens in there will happen in no other industry. That's what it is. But it is what it is. That was that part of my life, and you know what I mean, I had to deal with that and come out on the other side. And it's took me a long time, go through some dark times, but you know what I mean, you come out on the other side, and hopefully now I can try and push on and help other people, really.
Yeah, Paul Anderson had a really similar tale of you're trying to find a club and you don't find one, you have that realization. I mean, like you say, you're working at Loughborough now. How are you finding that, being back in the game as joint head coach?
Yeah, and that's what, like, in terms of that's what I said to you before. It's like, it's that having that football environment back again, but back when it first started. You know what I mean? You haven't got the politics in it. You know what I mean? You haven't got that side of it. It's just literally, it's still, you've got that honest environment, and you've got honest lads who, whatever football kind of pyramid they dropped out, or, you know what I mean, they're finding their way and they still want to really try and achieve. And you know what? For me, it's been a breath of fresh air for me. It's exactly what I needed. It's a great environment to be in. And it's just nice to be able to be in that environment again, really, be in that changing room. I needed it. I've been without it for so long. But you've still got that kind of just simpleness of it, of lads trying their hardest, turning up, playing as hard as they can for 90 minutes, trying to win 3 points. After the game, we debrief it, and everyone goes about the way, and you know what I mean, goes back. It's just a nice environment to be in. You haven't got the games and the politics that higher up is still there.
Do you not want to play?
No, it's that thing. So many people have asked me, and I just think to myself, I feel now that's the ladder that I want to go on. I want to be a manager. I want to be a manager at the highest level. That's my aim now. And you can't do both. I don't think you can play and be on the staff. I just don't think it works. And also, it's that thing of my thing is that if I was ever going to play, I'd want to go and play, but I'd have to go and be as 100% as I can. And I just don't feel at this time, with all my stuff, with my kids, with the other stuff that I'm doing, I'm not going to go out there and back play again at 50% Lewis McGugan. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not going to do it. So if I can't do it to where I need to be, where I think to myself, okay, I'm at a level where I can do myself justice, then I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? I'm just not going to do it. I'd rather just go, do you know what? Let me just fully 100% concentrate on the next stage of my career and my life. And that is the coaching and the managing side.
Who are your biggest influences as a coach and a manager? Then you've had so many different experiences. Who have you leaned on to form who you are as a coach? Yeah,
like I said, I think, and that's the good thing. I think I've been very, very fortunate in the sense of I've played under a lot of managers, but I played under a lot of different cultures as well. You know what I mean? I've been at Watford. We had, I think the time I was there, we had 6 managers. The time I was at Watford, so it's. There's so many little things, and that's the things you just try and take snippets, and even at times then some players do. Some players just absorb loads while they're playing, and they take stuff. I was never that person really, because I just concentrated fully on playing football. But then, as you then go into this kind of new thing, you start looking back and little things stand out, and you just take snippets, and that's probably the best way to do it. Is just to take snippets from each manager you played under. Yeah, well, I really liked how he did that, but I didn't really like how he went about that. But then I thought this manager was perfect at that. You know what I mean? And it's just trying to take little snippets of what you fight in your career and what you feel that can influence the lads that you're dealing with. And I think you've just got to be. I was very fortunate to play a good level for a number of years, but that's not a case of then going into a case of saying Loughborough Dynamo and then saying, right, do this, do that, do that, do that, because Loughborough Dynamo to Nottingham Forest and to the Championship is a completely different thing. But so that's where you have to learn and you have to think, right, what can I use at that level? What can still have that same response and same kind of outcome? So you can't go in naive, and you can't go in thinking that, right, I was at this level. I was very fortunate to be at that level, but that can help me at the level I'm at now, but it can't control it. Do you know what I mean? I can't be stuck in that level because it's not the two completely different things. So I've just got to try and use my knowledge and experience to see things. And if I can, like I always kind of say to the players, it might only be me saying something to one of them of moving. You know what? Instead of like you standing there, why don't you start to move there? It might only be 5 yards. That's what I mean. It's very simple. It might only be something like that. What opens their eyes to something what they've never seen. It doesn't have to be really technical, really in kind of, oh, we're going to do this practice, do this, where it can be very simple work, but effective. So you just got to, the biggest part of my game, my managerial style so far is man management. I've played best under the managers who have been the best man managers. And I think that in football nowadays, I think them kind of characters in terms of are coming out of the game. Go back to your likes of Mick McCarthy, people like, it's them old school man managers. You know exactly where you are. Stuart Gray, you know exactly where you are. If you've done wrong, they tell you. If you've done well, they tell you. There's no hidden agendas. There's no games. It's just very simple. And it's how can I get the best out of that individual? And that's the way I look at it in terms of what I do now is all my experience that I've had in my career, good and bad. I look at these players now and I think to myself, right, I'm looking at him. Maybe let me speak to him. Let me find out a bit more about him. Let me find out a bit more about his life away from Loughborough, kids and stuff like that. Let me find out what makes him tick, because what can make him come out his shell and really perform, his teammate is going to be a completely different. And that's what I think the art of managing is understanding every single person in that dressing room, and that they know that players have got different ways. Some need shouting at, some need the arm around them, some need constantly talking to, some need left alone. So it's down to you to understand which one of them people are. And that for me is a real interesting thing that I really like to kind of get involved with.
Just before we finish, last couple of minutes, I don't know how across you are Forest these days, but would you like to play for Steve Cooper, listening to what you say about man management and getting players, everything you hear about him, he does that. I mean, would you love to have worked with someone like Steve Cooper?
Yeah, I think you can only go off what players that work under him speak of him. They speak very highly of him, the way he goes about it, the way he goes about getting the training ground, the way the environment is. And that's the biggest thing of most any football club, really. You find that the most successful ones, the whole environment is really refreshing. That means the training ground, that means the chef, the laundry, you know what I mean? They're all in it together. They're all kind of close-knit. And I feel that the job that he's done since he's come in has just been pretty much remarkable, really. And the run that they've gone on. You just hope that, listen, let's just try and, I think the biggest thing is they've gone to the Premier League. Let's just enjoy it. Let's just enjoy being there. And I know people are going to think, yeah, of course we want to win. Of course we don't want to kind of get relegated or anything like that. But listen, it's been that long. It's such a kind of good spell and a good environment in terms of the city, in terms of the environment to be around. Let's just kind of enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Enjoy where we are now, because kind of the last 4 or 5 years have been nowhere near it and not been very nice to be around. So you just go, got nothing to lose, give it a good crack and see where they are come the end of the season.
Right, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much to everyone who watched along. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that fascinating insight from Lewis. We shall be back. When will we be back? Next Monday, I think, with another guest, and then it's basically the start of the season. So do join us then, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.